Hi, welcome to week 3. In this unit, we will be covering a lot of information, so it's important to know what you need to be doing and when you need to be doing it. You're going to have to manage your time really well inside this unit. It's a big unit. We cover a lot of information. So first we're going to start with the idea of learning, and what I want you to do is to look at the lecture on learning, and in that we're going to be talking about how we learn information, both as intentional information that we're trying to learn, as well as information or associations that happen even without our knowledge. So it's important to kind of know how we go about learning in order to be able to do better in that sense as well. The learning objectives for that particular chapter are, we're going to look at how classical conditioning and operant conditioning are different ways of learning. We're going to look at what is behavior modification and how we can use behavior modification techniques in our everyday life or in working with other people. And then we're going to look at observational learning. What is observational learning in the 4 elements of modeling? So what has to happen in order for people to learn information in that manner? So after we finish the lecture on learning, you're going to then switch over to the topic of memory. On memory, we're going to be talking about and focusing on the process in which how we remember information and how we kind of tips on how to remember things better, as well as what happens when things go wrong and we forget or we don't remember things accurately. So we will be talking a lot about memory and the different processes. And the learning objectives for that unit, for that chapter, include what are the 3 processes of memory and the different models of how memory works. 2, how does short-term memory differ from working memory? 3, what are the various steps of long-term memory and how is memory information stored and formed in long-term memory organized? And 4, how and why do we forget? Once we move on from the memory chapter, we are also going to be covering cognition. And all of these really kind of fall under the same umbrella of thoughts and the way that we think and the way that we remember information. In cognition, specifically, we're talking about how we engage in different thought processes, how we engage in things related to creativity, related to cognition, problem solving, those types of things. So the specific learning objectives for that unit include what are the methods people use to solve problems and make decisions? Second, how do psychologists define intelligence and how is measured? Third, how is language defined and what are its different elements and structure? As I have in other chapters, there will be optional handouts in the handout section that will be sort of lecture guides that you can use. I would recommend that you print those out and use those as a place to take notes either during your lecture or as you're reading the chapter. And you really need to be able to do both of those things. So again, for people that learn by writing it down, that's how I always learn, by writing things down, I would just use that as a guide to help you kind of organize and manage your information better. In addition, you're going to be watching some supporting videos, and these are really intended to reinforce the concepts and sort of bring them to life a little bit more into real life, everyday situations. So be sure you watch those. There's a really interesting TED Talk on memory and then a few other videos that I think will help kind of give you an idea of how you can apply some of these things in the real world. And then you're going to, during the course of this week, you're going to participate in 2 online discussions. So be sure that you are participating in both. You want to at least have, at the minimum, 1 post and then comment on 5 other students' responses. So again, you need to be able to be sure that you're doing this sort of earlier in the week and then modify or add posts as you kind of move along. So that way that the conversation doesn't just happen in a short window of time, but it really extends throughout the week. Also, if you end up, as an example, if you post 2 comments or thoughts, and then you don't have to then post to 5 different students. You have to have basically a total of 6 posts for the unit in order to receive full credit. And they should be good, thoughtful posts, not just I agree with this person. So make sure that you give some thought to it. The shorter, kind of more simple answers won't really be counted as responses. And then finally for this unit, you'll be taking a quiz on the information. And most of the quizzes, or all the quizzes up to this point, have been 20 points. This one is 30. There's more information, and I want to make sure that we're assessing the different learning objectives and focusing on the different areas that you're learning about. So be sure to kind of connect back to your learning objectives, study those pieces of information, as well as make sure that you're reading the chapter, watching the videos, and that you really have a good understanding. In addition, there'll be an optional discussion thread where you can ask any questions or have any discussions that you would like about the specific topics. Maybe something comes to your mind that's an example that you think might help other people, or a way to connect with other people in the class. So that is pretty much the overview for week 3 or unit 3 on learning, memory, and cognition. So I hope that it goes well, and I will see you next week.